Hey, it's Dan, and welcome to Unified Gaming. So in this one, I want to break down my melee magicka Necromancer PvP build for the current patch. This thing is ridiculous. It's one of the few Necromancer builds, in my opinion, that actually works. We've been able to combine sets, scribe skills, mythics, etc, to make something that is actually functional. If you want to see it in action, I do have a gameplay guide that's coming to the channel, so do subscribe to see that, or jump into my streams where I stream every Saturday over on YouTube at 9 PM. With this one though, I want to go through and show you everything, the skills, sets, etc, and also put a superstar towards the end so you can see it all easily too. And just note though that although we've done everything we can to min-max this and make this as strong as it can be, it is still a Necromancer, it still has a few woes, but we've addressed all of them as best we can. So with that out of the way, I just want to say a massive thanks to all the likes, and just a big thanks to people over on Patreon and on YouTube members who support to get early access and much more. If you want to get exclusives, etc, there's details down below. With this one though, what are we actually doing? For your race, you need to be a race that gives you spell damage. So something like a Dark Elf or a High Elf is a great option. If you're neither of those, Breton, Orc, Argonian, Wood Elf, anything will work, but Dark Elf, Breton, magicka theme's better. Dark Elf, High Elf are the go-to though. With a Dark Elf, you get magicka and stamina. This is key in PvP. As a melee magicka build, you need that stamina to just get around. So you do need this. This is really helpful. The resistance flame also helps as we are a vampire, and so this really helps offset that vampire penalty that we do get. And as I said, you get that weapon and spell damage. Personally, I think Dark Elf is the best PvP race for most builds, in all honesty. So yeah. With the attributes, I've gone all points into magicka on this one. I've gone for about 24, 25k magicka and 28, almost 29k health. We are using Death Dealer's feats, so that health does go to about 32,000 and the magicka about 28. And we also have like 24k stam. So we've got loads of max resource to work with. Those regens also do climb a bit, and so does that damage. For the Munderstone, we are using the Lover. Because we can't push our max health really high, or our max magicka really high and still have damage, we need penetration to fix that. So the Lover is the best way to get this. We are a vampire stage 3 too. Just really quickly, like with some of our armor buffs going, you'll see that front bar we have 24k resistances, back bar 28, 27, and then with the resistant flesh, this gives us armor too. It goes up even higher. So we do actually have a good amount of armor, and that crit resist we can push higher too in a moment. With the consumables, I use essentially something that gives you max resource and sustain. So Bear Haunch is amazing. Citrus Flake is a good option too, or Broth. I would use Bear Haunch, it's the best. If you don't have this, you can use Jaws of Mistral as a cheaper version. It's pretty much the same thing. And I use Tri Potions as they cover all bases. You need all resources for this build, so this is the best potion for it. The only other one to consider is Essence of Immovability, and use the magicka focus of that. That will help too. As with kind of the skills, you might notice we are a vampire. So being a vampire, we get access to a skill called Arterial Burst. This is our spammable. This is really cheap. It hits really hard, especially when we get higher and higher. This goes up more. As we get lower health, we also crit. So when below half health, we get a crit all the time, which means this can become a really potent skill because you're constantly critting. And as a Necro, you get really good crit passive, so this is really good. We use Dark Stalker and Strike from the Shadows, but we don't really use these often. We only be a Vampire Stage 3 for the Undeath. Undeath means that we have more damage reduction when we're lower health, and as a Dark Elf, although we take more fire damage, the Undeath and the Dark Elf passives help offset this. If you don't want to be a Vampire Stage 3 and go to Stage 1, that is an option. This will cost slightly more though, but that is an option too. Me personally, I go between Undeath and not, so play around with it, find what's right for you. Just note it has been nerfed this patch, so it is now 15%, not 30%, so that is a big change. So you might need to kind of test it yourself, see is it really for you, and if not, drop it. The only thing I will say with Undeath is this is an anti-execute. So if you are below 30% health, this is about 10% roughly, at which point it's Buffer of the Swift, which is a defensive set, which means this is having an extra defense set on when you're low health, which will help counter execute scaling. So this is like an anti-execute. It's the best way of viewing this passive. For the skills themselves, we are using Arterial Burst, as I said. We are using Blast Bones. We have to use Blighted Blast Bones as this is the only one that jumps at the target. And this goes to about 15,000 fully buffed, which is amazing. We then have a Scribe skill, Dazing Soul. Now, this is a really interesting skill. So to make this, you want to go with Wield Soul, Stun. You can then go with Resurgence, or you can go with Torment for a dot. Resurgence is better in my opinion. And then I went with Vitality, which sounds really weird. Like, you've got a stun and you've got a heal and buff and a sustain. The reason I went with this way is, as a Necromancer, you don't have a stun in your kit that's good. This is a 28 meter stun with a little bit of damage. It's cheaper to use, but it gives us more healing, which Necro has really bad healing. So this fixes the healing that Necromancer lacks. It also gives us a stun, which means if we use this defensively and we stun somebody, our next heal will be bigger. So it's kind of a offensive defense skill. We can stun them and then try and get a kill, or we can stun them and heal ourselves, which means that Vitality becomes really, really good. And having used this, this is the best way I found this skill to work that gives us the extra healing power that Necromancer does need, in my opinion. If you don't have access to this for some reason, then there isn't any really good stuns you can use. I would instead drop this and run Vigor. Vigor is a heal over time in the Assault. It's about 18,000 fully buffed, so it's worth considering. But this is really good. We then have Rally as a damage boost. Rally gives us major brutality, major sorcery, which is our damage boost, and minor endurance, which is our sustain boost. This is really helpful as that stam sustain is really needed on Necro because you have to sprint an awful lot. So this just helps move around. You might notice we are using a two-hander as well. And the reason we use the two-hander is obviously Rally, which is great. But you get this passive called Battle Rush. When we kill anybody with anything, we get a 30% stam regen passive, which is insane. This is like using a potion, and you can use a potion with this. Which means if you kill somebody and use a potion, your stam sustain is going to go through the roof. Your other hits, like light attacks and stuff, just cleave and hit other people. Everything else we don't really use. You might be asking myself, like, going, Dan, why can't I use dual wield? Because we're melee. If you use dual wield, the only benefit you get is the same pen stuff here. You do get access to this passive here, Dual Wield Expert, which gives you more weapon and spell damage on your offhand. It's about 100 more total. So for me, dual wield is 100 more weapon and spell damage. Or two-hander, if you kill people, you get 30% stamina sustain. I would rather the stamina sustain, plus we have Rally. If you don't want to use Rally though, you can then go down to Mage's Guild and use Degeneration, which will give you your damage boost and a damage over time. The reason I like Rally though is it gives us a heal. It's a passive heal, which we just put this on when we're at the start of combat, and at some point we'll get a big burst heal, which means this is really helpful for that. Again, Necro lacks healing, this really helps fix it. So this is a really good option. For the other skill, we have Camo Hunter. This is a passive skill that we don't really use. It's here for major crit chance, which is awesome, and minor berserk if we hit from the flank, which is more bonus damage. On top of that, because it's a fighter skilled ability, it means that we do get the Slayer passive, which gives us 3% weapon and spell damage for that being on the bar on top. So that is why we use this one over Mage Light. I did look at Mage Light, this is better. Plus we have the stam to like spare compared to magicka, so this is a really good option to use for just anti-Night Blades, so do use this one. If you don't want to run it though, just use a flex skill of choice. Ultimate wise, you want to use Dawnbreaker. When Dawnbreaker's up on our other sets, this is almost 15,000. So when you got 15k Blast Bones, 15k Dawnbreaker, it's 30,000 burst, plus about 10k Vampire spam. So you end up getting a good amount of instant damage, plus proc sets on top of this. Back bar, we have Summoner's Armor. This is our armor buff. It also makes our heals cheaper, because we use the Ghost Heal, which is awesome. and it also gives us just cheaper blast bones. So again, really good skill here. We have resistant flesh. How this works is that when we heal ourselves, we put defile on us, but then our heal will get stronger because of it. So you can see that's a 12,000 20k crit. If we use the shocking one, and we use this again, it's 13,000 22k crit, so that's 11,000 in PvP. That's 14k, so 7,000 in PvP. So you can see just those two things without a damage buff. This is a 7,000 heal in PvP. It really works, and it's armor. So this is how you want to use this. Resistant flesh is the best. We then have Spirit Guarding. This is here for a damage reduction. It's 10% damage reduction when we take damage. You can use Intensive Mender, but it's quite hard to sustain, or you can use Vigor. So pick between the Vigor or this. I think this is better personally for the damage reduction, but Vigor is a really good option too. We then have Race Against Time, which is our movement skill to get around, and we have Elemental Susceptibility. This will hit people with all status effects, so burn and chill concussed, and it will also reduce their armor. We then round this off with Temporal Regard as a passive damage reduction, which is really nice, minor protection. So with all of this combined, we are really tanky and we have decent damage. I want to go through the champion points quickly and then the sets and show a superstar. And if you do like the videos and stuff, then do like, do comment, but more importantly, do subscribe. I've got gameplay for this coming, so I'm really excited to show you it, and I would hate for you to miss out. For the CP, on the blue ones, we have Fighting Finesse. We want to have big crit. We get good crit chance as a Necro with some of our passives, and increasing our crit damage is really helpful. This also increases crit healing, which means we have bigger burst deals if we get really low. So really, really useful one to have here. Focus Mending, again, increases that healing. So what we have is basically a damage one, a healing defense one, and another damage one. We use Master at Arms as this improves damage with all direct attacks. So Dawnbreaker, Vampire Spammable, etc, etc. This is really good. And an Ironclad as a bit more damage reduction. For the red ones, we have Celerity for more speed. We have Survival Instincts for more just cheaper sprint, roll dodge, etc. Pain's Refuge for more mitigation, and Sustained by Suffering for more sustain. So again, really, really good, just generic stuff here. The green ones are up to you. The final thing now is to go through the sets, and I want to talk about how they work, because the sets really, really, really help with the damage and the killing power that Necromancer currently lacks, in my opinion. So, yeah. And one thing to note, if you did want to try it, you could add on an Execute here, but it wasn't needed in testing. With the sets, what are we doing? We are using Essence Thief. This set, when you deal damage with a light or heavy attack, it draws essence from the enemy that pours near them for 5 seconds, and it heals you, restores stamina, and increases your damage by 10%. It lasts 10 seconds and it's got a 10-second cooldown, which means that this is up all of the time. If you are fighting and you pick this up, you have this buff all of the time. It's constant stam sustain, it's constant health healing. That 4.3k is essentially like 300-400 regen. It's insane. Really, really good. What it looks like is this. Giant green ball. Like, you cannot miss that. And you get it. You're just walk into it and you get the buff. It's like really easy to get. So I would personally, if you can, there it is again. Walk into it. And there you go. And you know you've got it when you start glowing green. This is a fantastic set. It's a dungeon set. So just do factor that in. We use a sharpened maul. Sharpen give us more pen, and maul give us more pen again. And we use double dot poisons. For the bat bar, we use Wretched Vitality, Inferno Staff, defending. And you're probably going, Dan, why on earth would you use an Inferno Staff? Like, if we look at the passives, Ice Staff is more, it's a big shield. You get block passives with ice. Necromancer doesn't have the ability to block and tank like other classes. It just can't do that. It also lacks killing power. The advantage of using the Inferno Staff is when we heavy attack, we get a free dot. Now the dot would also transfer to this front bar, and it scales with damage. So let me just show you here. We just put on a damage buff. It's 14,000 already, and with other sets that increase it further, it's about 16,000, 17,000 fully buffed, so it's really good. And what you can do, which makes this so special, is when you're in combat, if you put on your armor buff, you get both Wretched Vitality, major and minor regens. If you heavy attack elemental susceptibility and the swap bar, you've now got loads of dots on them for free. Like, you literally did 0 resource cost to get 3-4 dots on them. So it's a really good way to get some passive damage that you will need. So an Inferno Staff is really, really slept on, in my opinion. And again, this is defending. For the monster set, we are using Master Lock. When you deal damage with a melee heavy attack, you spew a cone of corruption, dealing 5,576 disease damage to enemies over 4 seconds. It increases by 10% for each negative effect. Armor debuffs, status effects, snares, etc, etc. Anything that's on the target that is bad, this means we do more damage with this set. This is one of the best burst sets in PvP. It is really, really strong. The reason we use that Inferno Staff, again, is because it's another negative effect. So it really helps with that Master Lock proc. And that Master Lock proc, when we buff up, it's 6.5k here already. And it goes up to almost 7,000. On average, we get this about 10, 11 debuffs on the target with status effects and dots, which means this is like 13, 14,000 damage. And it can go higher if there's other people attacking that target, which means this is a really, really good proc set. You might be going, but you have to do a fully heavy attack like this. That's not true. So if I did a full heavy here, it procs, as you can see. You'll notice that the Essence Thief also buffs this. So again, really good synergy here. This has a really low cooldown, 10 seconds. So if we did a partial heavy, we just hold heavy and let go, you can proc it straight away. So this can be proc by literally just doing a very light heavy attack, and you can proc this instantly, which is what makes this such a strong set. So when you're in combat, you can do your blast bones and just medium attack, weave like this, and you've just put on loads of dots on them already, Master Lock, etc, etc. So Master Lock becomes a very, very strong set. We then have one piece trainee on the chest, reinforced, and we have Master Lock shoulders again, medium. The Master Lock is heavy, the shoulders is medium. Reinforced on the heavy pieces, so head, chest, and legs. We have light waist, Wretched Vitality, medium weight, Wretched Vitality, heavy legs, Wretched Vitality, and we use Essence Thief feet. Essence feet could just be anywhere. That could go anywhere on the armor, as long as it's on the armor. But this is like the best way to load this out. We then have a Necklace of Essence Thief, Swift, Ring of Death Dealer's Feet, Swift, and we also have Essence Thief, Infused Weapon and Spell Damage. So this is a spell damage glyph. The Death Dealer's Feet will increase our stamina and magic and health up, giving us more survivability, more healing. That max resource scales really nicely with Trifocus. What you'll also see with the Trifocus is when we get into combat, you'll see this is 12,960. 14,000. The Essence Thief also buffs that dot. So it's a really, really good way to just build this thing. I'm going to quickly just buff up to show you some of the stats, and then I'll show you the superstar. But this is like the best Necromancer that I've found to date. It's tanky, got really good sustain, just literally everything going for it. So you can see our mag recovery is 2,600. It is obscene. The reason it has to be so high is because we use a potion, but on flat it's about 2k. So you can get some really high sustain with this, which means you can spam heals like there's no tomorrow, which really helps with the lack of healing Necro has. So it really works. Honestly, this is like the best way to play Necro that I found. And just if you're curious about what it is without the potion, sustain wise we have 1,800 there, 1,800 there. With Blast Bones 2k, with the Ghost 2k regen. So we always have a flat 2k, with potion 2.6. But that is the kind of the build itself, guys. The superstar is here. So if you want to take a screenshot of this, you can. But yeah, I'm going to call it here. I'm going to say a massive thanks for all the likes, the comments, and the shares, the subscribes. It really, really helps. It means a lot. And just a bigger thank you to all the people over at Patreon and on YouTube members who do support. They get early access, exclusive content and much more. If you want to support myself and get all that good stuff, there's details down below. But until the next video or next stream, I'm going to say thanks for watching. Take care guys. And bye!